Good evening.
Good evening.
Hello to all. This is another episode after the new year has begun and has continued on for some time of AfternoonTeaV.
Ta-da!
This is another episode where we're not drinking tea, but who cares? It's still a good title.
It's still a very good title. So I'm Sarah.
I'm Doug. Sorry.
And welcome to another episode of AfternoonTeaV.
Yes.
Now, last time we got together, it was the week before Christmas.
Yes, it was.
It is now the 13th of January. We tried to get together, but schedules just didn't coincide. But here we are with a bunch of brand new material to bring to you, and we've got a lot of stuff to talk about, so we better get in right away.
Absolutely.
The 2nd of January, Doug and I went to go see Into the Woods with Meryl Streep, Emily Blunt,
Johnny Depp, James Corden, or Corden? James?
I think, and then Chris Pine.
Chris Pine and Anna Kendrick.
And a bunch of other people.
And many, many more.
Yeah, I was like, there's so many people in this movie.
All-star cast in very weird fashion.
Yeah. So for anyone who's not familiar, Into the Woods is based off of a musical by Stephen Sondheim, who also did Sweeney Todd, the Demon Barber of Fleet Street. So
Very entertaining film, by the way.
Very much. I like Stephen Sondheim. I like his music. I think it's hauntingly beautiful. And he's known for a little bit more darker themed pieces. But watching Into the Woods, I hated it. Every second of it, I hated it. From start to finish. Hate.
And this is to say that you didn't have any preconceived notions of the film, really, did you?
No.
Yeah.
I was actually very excited to see it. I wanted to see it. Of course, I wasn't going to force Matt to go see it because he really didn't want to. But when you volunteered to go see it with me, I was like, yes, I will go. I will see it. And I'm sure I will love it. And I hated it.
And that's saying a lot because you love musicals.
I was in many musicals.
Right.
So,
which I've never witnessed, unfortunately, but I would figure you love musicals, so.
I do. I've been in musicals. I love musicals. I was always a theater kid. So for me, I was very excited to see Into the Woods. Sometimes musicals can actually translate very well onto the screen. For example, I think Sweeney Todd did translate very well onto screen. I thought it was the kind of story that needed that kind of wide scope.
It needed that, yes.
Yeah, of a movie. However, certain musicals have not translated well. The more modern movie of Hairspray did not translate very well in my mind. I didn't think that it had the same kind of, I don't want to say backwood. I want to say like B-movie charm. Like,
and I've seen Hairspray, and it's entertaining, but I feel like it misses a mark somewhere that I'm not quite equipped to give in such words that to tell you how it was missed.
Well, Hairspray is supposed to be a little off-kilter, and I'll have to check on my phone. I've got to find it in my pocket. But, it's a little bit off. It's a comedy, so it's supposed to be pretty funny.
It's in Baltimore, so it's in a very relatable, city that, well, it was also in a certain time frame too, but I mean, The Wire was set in Baltimore and everyone loved that. They were like, cause it's so realistic, but that's two different comparisons. But my point is that when it comes to a city and a play or a movie is set in there, you're looking for a specific thing, and there's an amount of relatability.
Correct.
And I feel that maybe Hairspray did well on that, but.
Well, the original Hairspray, and this is what I wanted to check, was done by John Waters. John Waters is known for being a little off. Like, it's not in a bad way, just he does unconventional movies, unconventional stories. Right. He's also the one who did Cry Baby. He did A Dirty Shame. He's done a lot of different films, and they're all a little unconventional. Like, they're not mainstream movies.
It's not something you'd normally see. It's like, I'm not used to that. I like it, but I don't know how to feel about it.
Exactly. And that's how I felt about, when I first saw the original Hairspray. I loved it, but I couldn't really tell you why I just loved it. But watching the new Hairspray, I really didn't like it at all. And that's why, some stories translate onto the big screen and some just doesn't. Les Miserables was horrible on screen.
I had such a rough time with that movie.
It's not supposed to be on screen. It's supposed to be on a stage. And so I had a little bit of a preconceived notion that maybe it wouldn't Into the Woods, mind you, that Into the Woods wouldn't translate onto the big screen. And in my mind at least, I think I was right. I don't think it translated very well. Well,
I did some research.
Okay.
And this is a very small bit of research that I can convey, but I have to say it's enough. And this is going to be probably a spoiler-filled review as well for Into the Woods, so we'll just kind of get that out of the way.
Well, if they didn't know that,
right,
you do now.
Yeah. There was a point in the movie where it really threw me off, and I couldn't stand it, is when Chris Pine's Prince Charming decides to flirt and, more importantly, kiss the baker's wife. And that bothered me.
And I'm sure that there were hands roaming, and maybe something else roamed somewhere else. We don't exactly know.
Right, because the camera cut away because, oh, look at them, they're young lovers in love for no reason.
Yeah, honestly, the entire movie just didn't do it for me.
Right. With that said,
yes.
In the research that I did,
yes,
what I realized, and this is all kind of going hand in hand with what you said, what translates and what doesn't. This wasn't Prince Charming's only squabble, his little fling. He did that to not only the baker's wife, but it was two other princesses that were in there, and he cheated on Cinderella with those two and the baker's wife. So it was like, that made more sense.
Yeah, if they'd put that information in there, that entire scene would have made a lot more sense to me.
Right.
However, what really killed me, I was kind of stringing along, and I said, okay, I don't really like this movie, but I will continue to watch it, until you have this 90s-esque, choreographed, Boyz II Men-like duet with Prince Charming and his brother. Complete with open shirts, waterfalls, and leather pants.
You expect me to say I had so much fun with that scene, but in fact, even as a guy, to see these two do this made me insanely uncomfortable, and I was next to you.
It was awkward.
It really was. I mean, it would have been one thing if that was set up in the beginning, that they had that kind of rapport. But this was the first time they ever shared screen time. They burst in the song. They do all this stuff. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, again, it was, open puffy shirts and leather pants.
Oh, you tore your shirt open. Let me do that too because it's funny. You're having a little too much fun there. Stop it.
Exactly. And you're in tight leather pants, and there's waterfalls, and you're singing, and I'm thinking, oh my God, is this a Backstreet Boys video? Like, I don't know what you're trying to say here. I couldn't do it. I didn't like it. Even as a woman, I'm sitting there going, ew, this is wrong.
And I remember you whispered to me when we saw the first Prince, and that wasn't Chris Pine. You're like, oh, it's Prince Douchebag. And I'm like, already? And you're like, why not? We called it wrong. It was Chris Pine.
Pine, who was the douchebag.
And I said, well, wait, don't you want to wait till Chris Pine comes up?
And
we don't know.
And I was like, no, I'm pretty sure this guy's going to be a douchebag too. But it just, they were both just so douchey.
And apparently that sells, I can't stand it where we all think that princes need to be douchey in order for it to be real. No, I'm sorry. Maybe misguided.
It was just the kingdom of Les Douches.
Yeah, La Douche.
La Douche.
I really... It was hard for me to get behind it because I had more fun with, say, like, Once Upon a Time. And
Once Upon a Time is fun.
Grim Stories, the fairy tale, excuse me, that had a very epic twist. There were so many things that they're adding on, and, you know, mind you, no music, but still... Into the Woods tried to condense that, and it wasn't the greatest condensing I've ever seen.
No, and I don't know how you felt personally, but I feel like Meryl...
Oh, we'll get to that.
I think Meryl Streep was not properly utilized in the movie.
I can agree. It was fun watching her. She was probably the only thing that keeps me from saying I absolutely hated it. However, I know, you're shaking your head. No, you still hate it. Me, I dislike it, but it's not a strong dislike. It's not me saying I hated it. I just disliked it for that fact of it was a mess. It was an absolute mess of things that just didn't add up.
Yeah. Let me tell you, there was one moment that I felt was very realistic and was probably one of the most like hard-hitting moments was actually when Anna Kendrick was sitting on the steps. Mm-hmm. She's trying to run away from Chris Pine. And in typical Cinderella fashion, we all know the Disney fairy tale. She runs away. She loses her shoes. Well, in Into the Woods, she purposefully leaves her shoe. Right. She does it on purpose. It's not an accident. She takes off her shoe, plants it on the stairs, and...
I'll leave him a clue.
and runs away. But that little solo that she does, she's sitting there and she goes, you know, is this really what I want? I kind of have a life where I do what I enjoy, but I'm with people that I hate. Or should I be in a life where I have everything, but I'm not sure that I'm in love with him?
That's why she kept running.
Yeah, and I think that's something that happens to a lot of people all the time.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, you're in a relationship, and that doesn't necessarily mean that everything is peachy keen. You know, I think everyone goes through those moments where you sit there and you go, does this person really love me, or do I love them more and I'm just ignoring what's really going on?
I was told that not two people love each other the same way.
Yeah.
And that's kind of a hard truth to face, but it's true.
And I liked that one moment because I think that was the most real moment that you can have especially in this kind of a movie, this idea of, am I giving up what I want for what I think I need?
And that says a lot. That's a bit of a reality check. And
truth nugget.
I think you kind of brought that up because I missed that. In fact, unfortunately, it's when you're in a musical, you feel that, yes, there's going to be music, but you want to feel the music, you want to go along with it. But every time people started breaking out into a song in this movie, I had to start rolling my eyes. And I was like, checking the time. Oh, great. They're going to be like singing for a while now. And that's when Anna Kendrick starts singing, and I kind of zoned out. So I'm glad you pointed that out because I couldn't follow it anymore. So I didn't realize that there was that gravitational pull to reality from her singing.
And maybe it's because I'm a girl and, you know, men and women feel about situations two different ways. Yeah. And I felt that struggle before. Mm-hmm. You know, am I giving up something I need for something that I think I want? You know, I've had that, you know, in previous relationships. I was giving up something, whether it be, you know, my career or my happiness or something, for someone that I feel loves me or who I want.
I felt that too, absolutely.
Love me.
I just don't think I acknowledged it as much because it's like, well, this is how love is. This is what I have to do. I have to keep giving up stuff. I have to do this, and it's like, well, not necessarily.
But then, Anna Kendrick has that moment later where she goes, this is not what I want. And that's when she kind of runs into the baker, and the baker kind of tells her, the prince did this and the prince did that, and she goes, yeah, this isn't the life that I wanted. I thought I did, but it's not. And again, when we were talking about relationships 2 seconds ago, when you get into a new relationship or when you get out of that bad one is when you realize, wow, I gave up a lot for something that I thought I wanted.
And joking aside, it kind of makes you want to just cry in the corner for a couple of hours and say,
it does.
I just need to come to some terms.
So that was a really great point in the movie, and that's the only thing in the movie that I really liked. Was that little truth nugget right there.
It's not like you're not going to sit here and hate on the movie if you're going to give credit where credit is due, as I always say. And I would say where I could give my credit is I had some fun with the movie. However, it kept missing its mark. It was on 3 different tones, and then it's like, let's surprise them and say, hey, twist ending, this is where the fairy tale stop. And we're going to just throw you everything that we think would be hilarious so you can keep checking the time.
Well, I understand that Into the Woods is supposed to be more like the grim fairy tales, which are very dark, twisted, evil stories. I get that. But you're not supposed to throw all the bad crap in at once. It's supposed to be throughout the entire thing. Now, I've never seen the actual musical on a stage, so I can't tell you, the audience, anyways, whether this is kind of set up the same way. I can't tell you the parallels between the actual stage production and this movie that we've seen.
A lot was cut out, a lot was condensed, a lot was changed, and that is to be expected.
Absolutely. So I can't tell you all the parallels between the two. However, in my opinion, having seen firsthand how stage productions are done, how musicals are normally laid out, I was very disappointed. I do give credit where credit is due, and I think that everyone who was in the production did their best. I think this was a passion project for most of them.
Especially for Rob Marshall, because he's very good at doing that.
Yeah. And I think that, like I said, this is a passion project for most of the people that were involved. And I think that everyone was very excited about what they were doing. Mm-hmm. But I don't think that the overall production knew how to make every single theatrical element translate. You can have an amazing script, but if your production designer and your visual effects designer, your costume designer, if all of those people aren't on board and have the same vision, and if there's not enough communication, it's going to look kind of hodgepodge. And
you kind of feel that in this movie.
Yeah, that's how I felt. I felt a lot of it was hodgepodge.
Thank you. There's a better word to use that's just... It captivates everything.
It was
that I want to say. It's a hodgepodge movie.
It was a very hodgepodge movie. Some bits did not make sense. No. Other bits felt very rushed. Other bits felt like it was just kind of thrown in because why not?
Yes, because it was in the play and I think people will get a kick out of it. No.
It has to make sense. It has to be a continuous storyline. And I understand that there's a bunch of different storylines going on at the same time. You do have your Jack and the Beanstalk, Little Red Riding Hood. There's a mention of, oh my gosh, who was the Rapunzel. It's like, oh my god, I wanted to say the Rumpian, but that was that was the plant that the baker's father took from the Rampion. That was the herb. That was the herb.
Herb.
That the baker's father took from the witch's garden to give to his wife. And
That's right. And
then Rapunzel was the baker's sister, and it was weird.
It's complicated.
Very complicated.
We just had a moment.
Yeah, we did.
Moments.
Love it. And then, of course, there is Cinderella. What else? Oh, there was the golden egg. I
didn't notice the golden egg.
When Jack had the big...
I remember the harp.
Yeah, the harp.
And then the big gold coins. But yeah, those are all the elements that I could take out of. I mean, well, not all, but
I'm sure that there were a couple more fairy tales that they touched into, but that I don't remember. But it was very hodgepodgey. There was no consecutive story. It was just kind of like you forgot about this one character, and then nope, here they are. I promise you, they're still here. They're still here.
I felt that way with, like, Rapunzel. You know, it's like, oh, she's here, I promise. Oh, wait, there she goes again, and you're never gonna see her again.
She's here, and then she's not. She's here, and then she's not. She's here, and then... She is the impossible girl of Into the Woods. She is the impossible girl. She is here, she is everywhere. She has jumped into her own timeline.
Right.
She is everywhere.
Everywhere. Speaking of hodgepodge, I figure we could move on.
Fair enough.
So... hated Into the Woods, disliked Into the Woods for me.
Out of 4 stars, I would give it a 2.
And that's saying a lot coming from you.
Because of how much I disliked it, I do think that everyone gave it the old college try.
It gets that gold star that I showed you for the 20th Century Fox with the flute. It's like, you tried. You just... Yeah. Attaboy.
You can't go, in my opinion, you automatically have to go with 1 star. You cannot have no stars. You have to have at least 1. I think because you had such an all-star cast who did the best with their parts.
Yes.
It's not their fault that the movie was not put together the way it should have been. I think that was an editing thing, and I think that was a production issue. So because of that, I will give it 2 stars.
I would be on the same boat as you. No more, no less.
Yeah.
So, speaking of hodgepodge,
okay.
Now this is where we'll probably depart in opinions. The Hobbit. I didn't care for the Battle of the 5 Armies. I didn't either. Really?
I didn't really either.
I love the first one. I was alright with the second one, and we'll probably get in depth with this later, but the third one just didn't work for me.
I feel like they briefly touched on everything, because it's like, ooh, this is the last movie. We got to touch on all the shit that we haven't put in before. Ooh, pardon my French. All the stuff that we have. Okay, well, alright. We're getting adult, like, all the shit.
You're fine. This is, by the way, if there are spoilers in this, there is going to be language.
Yeah, we're adults. All the things.
All the feels.
Everything that they didn't put in the previous 2 movies, they had to kind of shove in.
Yes. God.
And I just kind of felt like there was not enough substance. It was all kind of fluff.
Right. Thank you. Okay.
Like Keeley. The story of Keeley and what's her face? You know who I'm talking about. Evangeline Lilly.
Yeah, yes.
What's her name?
No idea.
Okay, because I was like, I can't for the life of me.
You're okay, dear. It's okay. They barely say her name. If they do, it feels like an elvish name that is being spoken.
Let me go on IMDb because it's gonna drive me crazy till I find it.
Oh, absolutely.
However, the relationship between the 2 of them, all I did was type in and the Hobbit Battle of the 5 Armies came up. Okay.
I feel that maybe... go ahead, finish what you were saying.
Well, no, I was going to say, the relationship between her and Keeley, it just didn't...
Felt Forced.
Tauriel.
That is a name I will never remember.
Is it like Tauriel? 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 Tauriel?
Tauriel.
Whatever. We'll call her Gangsta T. Because she is pretty badass in that movie.
Yes,
She's
but
pretty badass.
The only problem is they had to shoehorn a love story, and I felt like that was like
It kind of felt like
flat.
It kind of felt like it almost came out of nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was a little bit of a in the first one. Like
You tried.
yeah, and then in the second one it was kind of like, ooh, let me look at you for a little while longer, and nothing. And then in this one it was kind of like, I'm gonna give you a rock as a rock. with some words on it. I'm gonna give you a rock.
It's dwarfish lettering, like it would mean anything to her.
Right. I mean, unless it's got a Shakespearean sonnet on it, I don't want your goddamn rock. It's a rock. What?
I got a rock for Christmas.
Right.
It's my friend.
I have a Kit Kat. I got a Snickers. I got a rock. Like,
your parents must hate you.
Exactly. You feel like the Charlie Brown kid, like redheaded stepchild from down the street. Like, I got a rock. I mean, unless that thing has a Shakespearean sonnet on it,
or can magically make you fly.
I don't want your rock. And how stereotypical. Oh, I'm a dwarf and I'm going to give you a promise rock. Wow.
Don't.
Wow.
Though, after all of that, what's so funny is there was a real moment at the end, spoilers, Keeley dies.
Yeah.
And
where did all that come from?
We'll get to that. But there was that moment where Tauriel looks up at the head elf and she's like...
Who's pretty as shit.
He's
purty.
He's pretty.
He's kind of pretty. I like his face.
He's a pretty damn looking guy.
Dude,
and it's really freaky.
He was pretty.
And
what's his?
I hear he's tall too.
Thranduil? Is that what it is?
I think so.
Yeah.
Legolas's dad, so I figured it'd be
it's like Thranduil.
But back on point here for a second, Tauriel looks up at him and she's like, "Why does it hurt so much?" And he goes,
"Because it was real."
Amen. Okay.
But it was just
that was real to me. I feel
he spends like 20 minutes sitting there and he's like, "An elf cannot love a dwarf." And then all of a sudden, he just shows up and it's like, where the hell did you come from? Because weren't they still...
forgive me if I finish it.
Because were they still on the ice or no? Did he die? No, he died in the actual building. He wasn't on the ice, was he?
Who?
Keeley. He was in the castle.
He was in nearby the tower. He was just outside of it.
Yeah,
where there's a little cove.
Yeah, like an alcove-y type thing.
Yeah.
And
of course he had to shed his solemn tear.
Right, and
I hated that.
That's such a cop-out.
Oh my god.
Thranduil, whatever, Pretty Boy Jones. We'll just call him Pretty Boy Jones. Because he...
Gangsta T and Pretty Boy Jones, there you go.
Gangsta T, Pretty Boy Jones, Special K for Keeley. Special K for Keeley. But no, so Lee Pace, who plays Thranduil, or,
Yeah. No, I follow you.
Pretty Boy Jones. He just shows up out of freaking nowhere and just kind of imposing, hello. And
this is Erlen Rickman. Sorry.
Erlen Rickman. It's me, Erlen Rickman, reminding you to take the pork chops out of the freezer into the refrigerator to defrost properly.
Just so you guys know.
Don't disappoint me.
Just so you guys know, I love this girl.
I promise, I'm not on drugs. I'm not. I promise. I'm high on life.
High on life.
The cereal.
Give it to Mikey. He'll like it. He likes anything.
Yeah, Mikey will eat anything.
He likes it. Hey, Mikey. says the nature of life, and that's an actual direct quote from Lee Pace. Anyway, moving on.
Pretty Boy Jones is looking at Gangsta T, and she's looking up at him, and exactly, she says, "Why does it hurt?" And it's like, where did your relationship even come from? Like, why are you so upset? Like, you just... It comes out of nowhere, and right before Keely leaves, like, they're looking at each other, and I'm like, where did this relationship come from? Like, there's some like bow chicka wow wow sexual tension going on here, and I'm like, she is really tall for you, dude. She is really tall
Even for a human, it would be way too tall for Keely, but, you know.
Exactly. So
he's tall for his age. What do you expect?
Right? So I'm like, slow your roll, Special K. Like...
Well, romance aside, you know, it's funny how we could just take one topic and turn it into an entire conversation. And that's not even the root of the reasons why I didn't even like the Battle of the Five Armies.
Nope.
The action just didn't work. Okay, you liked Lord of the Rings, right?
Yes, and it was such a small moment. It was such a big moment, like, in the actual storyline, like, in canon. Like, this battle was for a while.
Yes.
It was a big part of the story. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it was a big part of the story.
It was a big part of the story that was briefly talked about in the books that said that this is what happened, here's how it went down.
Yeah, and it lasted for like but it lasted for a while.
I believe so. I haven't really read the book. I mean, I read about half of it.
Dude, I read it in like 8th grade.
Right.
There are certain books, I remember every single detail.
Mm-hmm.
That ain't one of them.
Okay.
That ain't one of them. But I think that the battle lasted for a while. And, you know, I just felt like it was kind of lackluster.
There wasn't enough emotion or tension in the battle scenes between characters. I mean, I have a big thing about this, and you know, you don't have to see it the same way I do. It's the same problem that I had with X-Men: The Last Stand, which I despise that movie with all my heart. But the trailer...
Is that the one with when Jean goes all Phoenixy and like explodes?
And then like the Golden Gate Bridge, Alcatraz. Yeah,
okay, cool. Because I blocked that out because it was painful.
Yes, very painful. I despise that movie with all my heart, and that's a conversation for another time. However, I'm a really big person about this, is the dramatic speeches, the sentences, the monologues, anything, the way they say things are important. If they don't match up from the trailer to the actual movie itself, there's something that dies in me a little bit on the inside. And I mean, I know that sounds weird, but in X-Men: The Last Stand, Magneto says, you know, when the air is still and the night has fallen, who will you stand with? You know, and it was such a great, like, ooh, fighting words, man. And then it was just skimmed over.
Well, then it was also kind of like Ian McKellen.
Yes.
Anything he says is automatically 30 times cooler just because it came out of his mouth.
Right. Now, mind you, in the movie itself, he's like, no one ever talks about it. They just do it. And when the air is still and the night has fallen, they'll come for you and your children. And who will you stand with? And it's like, okay, that was cool, but not in that dramatic way that trailer made it out to be. That was supposed to be the badass line for me. Why didn't you deliver? But then again, it's just me. I don't expect you to see the same thing. But
I'm sorry.
It's fine. No, I'm almost done. It's the last bit of it in The Hobbit where I kind of felt that same way with Martin Freeman. He's like, one day I'll remember everything that happened. The good, the bad, those who survived, and those who did not. And it was very genuine, very heartfelt, and it was just said really quickly in the movie.
Right before he, like, exited and was like, deuces and goodbye.
Yeah, it was like, one day I'll remember. And, you know, and it's like, why? Oh, it didn't work for me. I'm sorry.
My thing is, in The Lord of the Rings, my favorite out of the 3 movies is The Two Towers.
Yeah, you said. Yeah.
I love The Two Towers. And I know a lot of people don't understand why I like The Two Towers.
Oh, I understand perfectly. There was so much going on, but I didn't feel that.
There was so much going on, but it was... I didn't need a setup for the story. I already knew what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't the last movie, so I didn't have to worry about it being the end and having to cram everything in. And a good majority of the movie is nothing but fighting scenes. I was okay with that. I was disappointed because here's all of these elves. And elves are so graceful. I really just wanted to watch how graceful they are. I just wanted to watch more of them kicking butt and taking names. And I really wanted to watch more Pretty Boy Jones.
He's a very compelling character, no doubt. I mean, they set up something about him in the Desolation of Smaug, where he's like, he got back at the head the head dwarf Thorin. Wow, can't believe I had a break.
Thorin, you can shield.
Thorin, and he gets up into his face, and suddenly, Pretty Boy Jones started getting his face distorted, and you saw that he was burnt by the fire of the dragon. Never explored again. But that was such a compelling moment. And I was like, do tell more, please. I would love to know.
I don't know. I think that they just briefly touched on a little bit everything and didn't delve into anything.
And that's where I felt more about that more so ever in the Battle of the Five Armies, where everything was lost in translation to me. What really, really made me upset is how everything was glossed over after a big moment. And then those big moments had these long pauses. And those long pauses were soon interrupted by, oh, here's something else. And then repeat. Long pauses. Execution. Excitement for a moment. And then, oh, here's something else. It's like, okay. The Battle of Minas Tirith was phenomenal. Everything that was happening in that city when the orcs, the thousands and thousands, near 500,000 orcs that came in, it was probably the single most intense fight you'd ever see on screen, and every moment worked. Down from the catapults flying, the trolls pushing the towers in, the raid, and then the Nazgul coming in, and then the elephants.
The Arlifons.
Arlifons. All those perfect, amazingly executed.
Because it built. Like, there was one level of orcs. And then once you got over how many orcs were coming in, then you saw the trolls. And then you saw the catapults. Then you saw the trolls. Then you saw the Arlifons. And it built upon layer and layer and layer. It's like peeling an onion. Like, once you get past one layer, there's an even more horrible thing coming. And then it gets worse. Right. And then it gets even worse. And it just gets nastier and deeper and grosser.
And you're so engrossed by this point that you're just like, oh my god, I need to go to the hospital, my heart.
And I think the only thing that they really, they still didn't do a good job with, but they touched on the most was Thorin going mad.
Yeah.
But it didn't seem very genuine.
No, it felt very heavy-handed. It felt
like all of a sudden he was fine, and then like the next minute he's just kind of like la 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 la. Do you doubt me? I will kill you. You doubt me? I will kill you.
It's like in the middle of this podcast, you suddenly getting mad at me for no reason. It would be it wouldn't make any sense, and that's what didn't make any sense to me.
It did it, because 1 minute... Oh, I'm sorry, I gotta yawn. 1 minute, he was fine. Excuse me. And then the next minute, he was just cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs.
Yeah.
It didn't make sense. There are movies like the phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal Still Alice with Julianne Moore. I recommend that you see it. Mm-hmm. She is slowly falling into her Alzheimer's disease. And you can see her gradually losing her mind and going crazy and crazy. Then there's Blue Jasmine with the absolutely stunning Cate Blanchett, who is also in the Battle of the Five Armies.
Ooh, we got more to talk about with her, yes, but go ahead.
She is having a mental break, and you can slowly see it developing over a small... It's a small amount of time, but it builds and it builds and it builds. It doesn't just psychotic break.
Right, and I felt that maybe it would have benefited this movie, Thorin, having that psychotic break over time. Not suddenly he's in there and then now he's just got this sickness from the mountain.
Right.
I'm sorry, but even his own grandfather or father or whatnot had a gradual, and
the thing is,
sickness.
Most of these Lord of the Rings movies are like 3.5 hours. If we can sit through a 3.5 hour movie, you can make it 3.5 hours, and that way you can really dive into the topics.
Dude, I'd be camping out in that damn theater. I'd be like, oh my god, this movie's going to be the longest one ever, but they're going to cover everything. I'm going to sit down, I'm going to buy popcorn, I'm going to have my drinks, I'm going to have so much fun.
Give me like a 20-minute intermission so I can pee, do a popcorn refill, soda refill. You know what? You could even make it like 2 10-minute breaks.
Yeah.
Make it like 2 10-minute breaks. I can pee, get a soda, get more popcorn. Good to go. Good to go.
But they don't do intermissions anymore.
They should for butt busters like that, though. I'm sorry. Anything over 2 hours, and I'm gonna need a pee break.
Well, what's so funny to me?
Not necessarily, but sometimes.
Yeah, no. You know what's so funny to me is that they decided to split this into 3 parts, and didn't even think to say, "Oh, this is the 3rd one. Why don't we do like we did with Return of the King, and really take our time with this?" This is what everyone's been coming to see. This is going to be our biggest dramatic one yet. Mm-hmm. Let's not rush this. But imagine if you were making a story for over 10 years, which was Peter Jackson adapting.
They did it with... Ouch, it was my shoulder. They did that with... Harry Potter?
Yes, but various different directors. Peter Jackson was at the helm of all 6.
So if you're not willing to put in the time, don't do it.
Well, say for the... I really can't stick up for that. You're right, but...
And the amount of money that he made, please. With the amount of money he made and the Oscars that he has won, don't tell me it's not worth it. Screw you, dude. If you're not willing to do it, don't commit.
Especially with the ill pace that he did with the 3rd one. Now, mind you, I agree. At some disagreement points, however, I can't justify what had actually happened to what we ended up seeing. What I can't stand, though, is all these little moments that we were all looking for in a movie like this, and just to be glazed over and forcibly give us something that we didn't ask for. Tariel was amazing. Evangeline Lilly, she knocks it out of the park, as I would say. However, she's just eye candy, and I didn't like that. She kicks some ass and ticks some names, but honestly...
Not enough to make her a serious character.
No. No. And let's go on to Cate Blanchett for a minute.
Okay.
In the ill-paced timing of how this movie started to when it ended, that was probably my favorite bit, is her kind of slowly succumbing to something, the darkness surrounding her, but then... soon after, pushing away that darkness that was Sauron, and I liked that, but it was so forced. Suddenly she became the same one that what we saw in
Lord of the Rings.
Lord of the Rings. I was like, oh, nice homage, but this was a little too quick.
The scene was done very quickly, and it was very rushed. I didn't think that there was enough finesse to it, especially when you're used to watching The Lord of the Rings and everything kind of takes its time.
Yes.
Nothing really ever moves quickly, which for some people could be a problem. For me, not really. I'm used to it at this point, and I really don't care. I'm spending $10 to see this movie in the theater. You better give me your all, or I'm going to be pissed and I'm going to ask for my money back.
And I completely agree to that. I don't disagree at any particular point. I'm paying to see this. I will sit through it. I will watch it.
Exactly.
And I will enjoy it if it's enjoyable.
Which is why I said they could have made that movie 3.5 hours. I'm paying $10 to see it. I would have easily sat for 3.5 hours and watched it.
And that's my argument, especially when The Hobbit, An Unexpected Journey, everyone would complain how that is a overly long movie where they sleep half the time and walk. Well, I'm sorry, but that's part of the...
So was The Lord of the Rings. I mean, have they never seen it?
No, apparently not.
90% of Frodo and Sam's story is wake up, eat, walk. Wake up, eat, walk. Wake up, eat, Smeagol, walk. Right. That was the entire storyline. Until, like, the last 45 minutes of the movie, when they finally get to the freaking tower.
And then the mountain.
Right. It's like, dear God, clearly you didn't see the story. And even, like, Aragorn and everybody like that, ooh, we's gonna run after some hobbits. Yeah, we's gonna run after some hobbits. Yep, we's waking up and running after some more hobbits.
We're the three musketeers. What's
we
for
are
breakfast?
the three best friends that anyone's ever had. Yeah, it just, come on now.
Yeah.
Clearly, you didn't see The Lord of the Rings, or you did not pay attention.
Or you just didn't care because it was Lord of the Rings and you expected better from The Hobbit. Come on now. It's an adventure movie. That's my point. It's an adventure movie. You're going to get that. You're going to get every single aspect of fantasy and sci-fi in a story like this, and I just can't stand to be a critique of why you didn't like it. You're going to see that.
I was just disappointed.
Yeah.
It was just fluffy. It didn't have substance. It was marshmallow fluff.
That's kind of how I feel about mostly all the two-parters or three-parters in movies. Now, mind you, I have a lot of favorite two-parters in movies.
Sure.
But when you're splitting a single book, like, say, a Harry Potter book.
Okay, yes and no. With Harry Potter, there was so much stuff that happened in that last book that they really needed to separate it.
Oh, I'm cool with that. Don't get me wrong. I'm cool with that.
And, like, the Hunger Games, Mockingjay is split into 2 books.
Yes.
The actual book itself is separated into 2 books. One half.
Oh, from an actual, legitimately inside there. It's
yes.
book 1, book 2.
Yes. So when you actually pick up Mockingjay, there are 2 separate books.
Oh, I thought you might have misspoke, but that's very interesting.
No, there's two parts in this one book. It's still the same book, but there's 2 separate books. That's the same thing that even though I hated it, Twilight.
Which we will never speak of again.
But the last book was separated into 2 books.
Okay. And I know.
Same book, but 2 stories within a book.
It makes sense. Yes. Go ahead.
So that's why, some of these stories needed to be separated into 2 movies. I'm trying to think of how I want to say this. With Twilight.
You broke the golden rule.
I know. Rule number 1 about AfternoonTeaV: we don't talk about Twilight. Rule number 2: we don't mention Twilight.
Too late.
With Twilight itself, personally, I didn't really see the need to make 2 movies. From a book standpoint, I understand why they did it, because in a book, you use a lot more words to create an environment, to create an immersive story. Mm-hmm. You have to be able to describe everything from beginning to end. So I understand why Stephenie Meyer, even though she's a terrible writer, separated it into 2 different stories. However, the movie itself could have been done in 1 long movie.
Could have.
I say that because Breaking Dawn Part 1, most of the movie is actually spent with Bella being pregnant with this vampire baby. And then, they spend all this time with, like, do I want to be a vampire? Do I not want to be a vampire?
Just
I want to be with you.
Damn mind.
And then it's like, oh, let's get married and go on a vacation. And it seemed like it took a long time for something that didn't need to take that long. They easily could have made it like a 3-hour movie or a 3.5-hour movie and briefly touched on her, giving birth to a vampire baby, and then the rest of the story. Because let's be honest, the wedding really isn't that important. We all knew that they were getting married. Mm-hmm. We didn't need to make it this huge to-do. We don't need to spend another 45 minutes about the fact that he doesn't want to have sex with her because he doesn't want to hurt her because she's human and she might get a bone broke. You know,
it's not a central conflicting moment.
Yeah.
It's something that you mention briefly and then you move on in a story like this. But, you know...
So, and that's why I'm saying, like, there are certain movies where you don't need to take that much time to delve into a topic like that. But I feel like in The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, something that you've got so many different storylines going on. Mm-hmm. You've got so many different things happening. I think you do need to take your time and break it up and dive into those topics. You need to take that time to explain what's going on, and it didn't happen.
Yeah, and I think when they're splitting these things up into two parts and whatnot, they know it's for a reason. They know they want to do it because they want to cover everything for the fans and for themselves because they either really liked it or whatever.
A lot of times they just want more money.
Yes, and it's more a sense that it's actually a marketing ploy. It's more like, oh, these stories would sell. We know that they'll sell. Let's split them up and let's give it to them 1 year at a time. And it's just to keep it around for 4 more years or 4 years longer than it should. And what's funny, though, this is the main point that I was trying to get at, is usually it's the first parters of every 2-parter movie that they make out of one book that I seem to enjoy the most. Like Harry Potter Part 1, The Deathly Hallows, I seem to really enjoy that a lot more than the second part. Don't know why. So far, I really enjoyed The Mockingjay Part 1. I don't know why. It's strange, but I mean, usually that's the time that everyone's like, oh, they're just getting all the fluff out of the way. That's usually where, oh, that's the boring stuff. Oh, this is what happened after the events of the last part. And, you know, usually it's just calming, it's setting up. And I don't know, I must have a thing for setup. So maybe that's all I'm saying. So when it comes to the movies, I guess we've been kind of sadly disappointed in our finale as the year closed. You know, The Hobbit was all right, and then Into the Woods just capped it all off. Even when we saw it in the new year, ooh, that was rough. Rough digesting.
Very, very rough.
And now I have actually seen more movies this month. I saw Taken 3.
Okay.
Selma.
I saw that you...
Yes.
Or I heard that you watched Selma.
And then I also saw The Woman in Black 2.
Okay.
So with those, you know,
I'll have to go home and watch those, and then we'll talk about them together. But
but there's... It's been a kind of a rough start, but Selma saved it because that was a movie I absolutely really enjoyed. For the most part.
Let's not talk about it till I see it. I'll go home and I'll watch it online for free.
You did not just hear that. No.
Whatever. Let North Korea suck on it.
In which I did see the interview as well.
But, I did too.
There we go.
Okay, so we'll close out this one, and next time we'll talk about the interview.
Sounds good to me. So thank you guys so much for tuning in.
Thank you, and thank you for being patient with us.
Yes, absolutely, and so many viewers that we get. Thank you very much. If you guys want to, you can check out my videos of Taken 3, Woman in Black, and all that, and Selma, you know, by all means. But podcasts are usually the extended reviews of said movies.
Yes, so, these are the deep, in-depth conversations.
Right, where one little small topic can turn into an entire conversation.
Holy cannoli, yeah.
So, but this was fun. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we will see you guys again very, very soon.
Bye, guys.
See ya.